Good morning. Another quiet day here in KXAS, Dallas-Fort Worth. Not much going on. Well, actually, yesterday was a very, very big day for LIN Television, and I wanted to share with you the information so that you all know what's happening. Now, I really don't have a script here. I've got some papers I can review, and I kind of review the history of what happened yesterday and how it came about. But also, I'd like you to be able to answer any questions you might have. So, yeah, I hope you all have the memo from me that should have been distributed at all our television stations, and also the press release. And it's pretty accurate. I think you saw it on your newscast this morning, I hope, last night. Maybe you read it in the paper. But briefly, let me take you through kind of the history, maybe the LIN television history. And one of the things that kind of made this a very special company and a culture that I talk about, LIN culture, and there really is one. I actually joined the company back in December of 1988 and was actually the first president of LIN Television. Before that, we had just one president. And when I joined, television was the small business. The big business was cellular telephone. And we had licenses, LIN Broadcasting, for New York City, Los Angeles, Dallas, Texas. We also had Houston. And as a result of that, we had great interest by other industries in LIN broadcasting, not television interest. And within a very short period of time, about 2 months after I was there, we began going through a hostile takeover. And if you've ever managed a business through a hostile takeover, boy, it's an experience, I'll tell you. And actually, it was a learning experience for me to do that. One of the things I learned is the most important thing you can do while there's a change in ownership, a change in corporate structure. For me, a change in who I'm going to report to, my boss, my board. The most important thing to do is to remain focused on what we do. And I refer to that to Doug and all the general managers. It's 6 o'clock and what do I see? And I want to see the best newscast in town. So irregardless of all these other changes, the most important thing to do is to remain focused in what we do. So that was 1989, and we came through a hostile takeover, and we were taken over on March 5th, 1990. And Craig McCall became my boss. Now, Craig bought LIN Broadcasting for the cellular telephone. As you know, he was building the greatest cellular telephone company in the world at that time. Today, it is known as AT&T Wireless. So we became a very small company in a very big company. And that experience was very good. We learned, again, that running a good business makes good sense, even if you're not in that business. So one of the things we found out is making our businesses grow, making our television stations leaders within their markets, improving. And in the last 8 years, all of our television stations, with the exception of one, is one notch higher in the news ratings. Those that were 3 are 2. Those that are 2 are now 1. Wavy would be the exception to that. They were 3 and now they're 1. But in all our markets, we have shown growth. So no matter who the owner was, that was a good thing. They were happy with that business. The next big event took place in September of 1994. And that was when Craig McCaw sold McCaw Cellular, which owned 52% of LIN Broadcasting, to AT&T. So I had another boss, a new boss. Now I'm working for the company that has more employees than any other company in the world. And so now we're even smaller. We're getting smaller all the time in the overall structure of these companies. But that only lasted 4 months. And then LIN Television was born on December 28th, 1994. We were spun off, and at the same time acquired one more TV station, WTNH, in New Haven. And so now we have added one more station. Unfortunately, we lost one station too. AT&T maintained 100% ownership of our NBC affiliate, Wood, in Grand Rapids. Well, one of the things that you read in this press release is that Wood will be coming back to the fold. Will be coming back to LIN and the LMA OTB in Battle Creek. So that's a good thing. So on day 1, when we're born again, this time as a private company, we're going to have Wood and OTB back in the fold, back in the family. We had one other acquisition, IBV, in Buffalo, CBS affiliate, and that was September of 95. So we've been able to grow, but not by great leaps and bounds, because obviously the owners of the company, although they really liked LIN, their core business wasn't television. It was telephone, and they were in the telephone business. And this was one of the reasons why AT&T reached a decision to approve, along with the independent board of directors yesterday, this transaction. Their main interest was to take the resources, the assets created by LIN Television, and redeploy those assets into the telephone business. So the main thing that we will be able to do with this new structure, with this new partnership with Tom Hicks and Hicks Muse, is to provide a platform for growth. So the LIN television stations will provide that platform. And our vision, which for the last 3 years has been to grow and prosper, will be able to now compete in this consolidating market, this business that we're in, television, just like banks and just like airlines and just like hospitals, is consolidated. In Providence, where I work, there used to be another business across the street called the Providence Journal. Well, it's not there anymore. It's actually right down the street down here. It's owned by Belo. In this market, we once had Renaissance. Well, Renaissance isn't here anymore. It's called Tribune. It's a much bigger company. So we will be able, with the resources and the shared vision with Hicks Muse, to once again become players with regard to the television industry. So what does this mean? What does this mean for you? What does this mean for me? Well, it means there's not going to be a lot of change. If you read this press release, there's not going to be very much change at the station level at all. We're going to have pretty much business as usual. It's 6 o'clock. What do I see? How are we doing on the avails are out, Teensy? That's right. How's the tower coming, George?
It's up. Well,
Good.
yeah, absolutely.
How's our episodic doing? Our promotion tonight? Well, in our community service? The hallmark of LIN television is local news, public affairs, community service. That won't change. In the last 8 years, we have more than doubled the amount of news on each one of our television stations. You knew we were the leaders when it came to early morning. First we had a half hour, and then an hour, 90 minutes, 2 hours, starting at 5 o'clock in the morning. Actually, we led the industry in expanding into that time period. Digital, we want to be there first. It's coming. It too will change. We will see that right here in this market next year, the first digital transmission. So we want to keep pioneering change and be on the cutting edge as the industry changes and be able to be a big part of that. Let me just take a few minutes, if you had not seen exactly what the transaction is. We are going to have a price of $47.50 a share. There is an accretion factor starting January 1st, or when the board stockholders approve it, when the stockholders approve it, and that's about 8% a year. We'll become a merged company with Hicks Muse. This will be separate from the radio division. And as you know, Hicks Muse is very big in radio, I think the second largest. Chancellor, Capstar, the two companies. They've built a model there. It's very similar to our model, and they call it buy and build. They both buy and they build their radio stations into better properties. We hope to do the same. They have a company that is kind of a medium market company radio, and they have a big market. That's Chancellor. Now, when it comes to television, there's a smaller company called Sunrise, and they'll concentrate basically in markets 50 to 150 in terms of growth. LIN's main focus will be in markets 50 to 1, or the top 50 markets in terms of our focus with regard to potential acquisitions in the future. We hope to have a transaction in 9 months. That's another thing we're looking forward to. There's a breakup fee of some $32 million should this deal not close. And there is an opportunity for another company, if they so wish, to top this offer. This is about $1.7 billion without the accretion factor. That means that we're talking in probably $2 billion, or a lot of money, if someone wishes to do that. Those are the basic facts of the transaction. But I guess what I'm most interested in doing is leaving you with a sense of how the company is going to go forward. I guess if when you came to work this morning, you liked your job, that's going to be how it's going to be in the future. Now, if you didn't like it, that may be a problem, because that may be a problem in the future too. So I don't see a great deal of change as a result of this. I encourage you to continue the great job that you're doing, because this is what's built LIN. This is why Hicks Muse and many of the other companies that we've talked to in the last 2 years were attracted to LIN. It does have a history of accomplishment, performance, profitability, capital investment. We've put a lot of capital investment back into our properties, and leadership. And these are the characteristics that we hope to have go forward, and we will take forward with us as we make this next transition. So we've been through some 4 different capital structures since January 1st, 1989, and this will represent the 5th. And maybe there's going to be a 6th. One thing I found is it's kind of like the old adage about success. It has many fathers, and failure, well, it's an orphan. The same thing's true about television stations. Everybody wants successful stations. And so there's no lack of potential owners. I hope all of you people have invested in the ESPP. That's the only benefit plan that I would see changing when we become a private company. Had you invested that first day we came out, as you know, the LIN stock came out 2 years, 7 months ago. The valuation was $16, $18. So $47.50 is a pretty good price for 2.5 years. And you obviously had an opportunity to participate in that through your ESPP, and I hope you did. I know half of you did. It obviously turned out to be probably the best investment you could make. Now, what I'd like to do is there's numbers at the bottom of your television screen, and I'd like you to call in, and I'll try to answer any question. I can't answer all of them because I don't know them yet, but everything that I can answer, I want to share with you. So,
I got one already.
Okay.
This one just came in from Andy Fox at Wavy, and Andy's question, basically on the mechanics of the transaction. In an environment where there were some analysts who were projecting a stock price of 52 or 54, why did our board of directors take 47.50?
47.50. Well, obviously the first answer is we thought that was a very fair price. As I indicated, we more than doubled the value in 2.5 years. In the last, since January 1st, the price has gone up 15%. LIN has traded at the top of its peer group with regard to television companies. And quite frankly, we were faced with several options. One is to sell it to someone else who would pay the highest price. We have had, and the board has had, discussions with many companies, some private, some public, and no number that high was offered. Secondly, there's some risk here. One is on January 1st of this year, there was going to be a thing called a private market guarantee. And what that said is that it ensured a process, and that meant that AT&T had to either buy the other 55% of the company, it presently owns 45, or it had to put the company up for auction. Now, that guarantees a process that we would be auctioned off in 1998, but it doesn't guarantee a price. And of course, you have to have a buyer and a seller before you have a transaction. So this was, and most of the analyst prices were 52, 55. They were based on a 1998 number. And of course, LIN, should the private market guarantee process go forward, would not be LIN in 1998 as we know it today. So obviously that change would come there. There's another risk, and that's simply that that stock market has been on a rip, and it's done very well. But anyone who's been in the market, as long as I have, knows that it doesn't always go up. I mean, there's possibilities of downturns. The economy's very good right now, but there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that it will be in the future. Let me take any other questions that you might have.
What about our retirement funds? Will they stay intact?
We, right now, we plan on keeping the benefits, and there may be changes in carriers. My God, there's, as you know, the hospitals are changing themselves. They may change. There may be mergers there that will affect us, obviously, and insurance companies are merging. There may be some changes in the carriers, but the basic concept of our benefit package will not change, and that applies to the medical, pension, 401k. Those will pretty much stay intact. There may be small changes. Conceptually, the largest change we have ever had in the benefits was in 1992, I believe, and that was when we had a concept at the company where the employee pays 50% and LIN paid the other 50%. In 92, we changed that, where LIN pays 90% and the employee pays 10%. For family members, I believe we pay 75% and the family members 25%. That was very unique. If you can think back to the early 90s, LIN was about the only company that was increasing its coverage of medical when, in fact, almost every other company was decreasing it. So in terms of our relationship of paying the 90-10, 75-25, that won't change. Now, if we go from Travelers to someone else, that is a possibility. Of course, that's a possibility today. And we don't see a change today in the 401k, the pension fund that we have today. As I said, the major change, of course, would be the ESPP, because we're not going to have a public stock. So that would be the major change.
When you concerning the employee stock option, that obviously was a benefit that a lot of us took advantage of, and was a large benefit for the company fronting 15% of the property. Is Hughes Mix is the Hughes Muse Hicks group planning to supplant that with some kind of an incentive or profit sharing package that is going to make the incentive or the inducement to perform beyond there? I mean, are we going to have an inducement package?
What I want to do is, as we get closer to completing this transaction, sit down with Tom and the people at Hicks Muse, and I'll try and come up with some other concept. It obviously can't be a public currency, but some other concept to replace that value. I realize it was a terrific value, and we'll want to come up with that. And there are other mechanisms that private companies use to do that. One of the things that we've tried to do is make all the LIN employees feel part of this family. And of course, when you own part of it, it helps you to feel that way. And obviously that's something we'll want to continue.
Possibly in a form of a profit sharing program?
That's a possibility. Again, as we get closer, I'll have to sit down with him. As of today, our relationship has been very good with Hicks Muse, but of course I'm still working for the board of directors of LIN right now. And I've had discussions with regard to Tom. He's expressed an interest to have us stay on the management of it, and we've expressed an interest to do that. I've been here and kind of grown up with the company and would like to continue doing that. But the details of that have yet to be worked out.
Can I jump in and just give you a few? The phones are ringing off the hook. Send your donations to 1-800. But actually, we're getting some great questions. And relative to the ESPP question from Jim Canning in Austin.
Hi, Jim.
The question was, is the ESPP plan going to be frozen during the period of the transaction going forward?
Speak from, and Jim was also last year, not this year, but last year, a Circle of Excellence winner.
And then there was also a question about the Circle of Excellence from Buffalo as to whether or not the Circle of Excellence is going to go forward.
Okay, let me take those together. The first one is, I can only speak from past experience. And past experience when this happened last time is we continued the ESPP right to the end. So we would be able to continue that. It was not frozen last time. These are one of the details we have not worked out totally yet. But last time that was how that worked. Circle of Excellence is a part of the fabric and culture of LIN Television, and I can assure you that it will continue.
For all those involved in national sales, there was a question from Denise in Indianapolis about Hicks Muse's most recent acquisition of CATS.
Mm-hmm. This has not been completed, but Hicks Muse has an agreement to buy CATS, the rep. And of course, we're repped by Blair and Petrie, as you well know. I've had no discussions with Tom regarding this. We have a contract that takes us through January of 2000 and January of 2001 in place. So I wouldn't anticipate any changes in the near-term future. Long-term, we'll have to evaluate that. Of course, as you know, we evaluate that every 13 weeks, our relationships with our rep.
Okay. Really two quick ones. Lynn in Fort Wayne just had a question about whether there would be a 401k matching plan, which we really don't know the answer to that yet.
We don't know the answer to that. And I would say that today, if you have a 401k, now some of our
Right.
stations do have that today.
Right. Some stations do and some don't. So there is
One of the things
package there.
One of the things that happens when you buy companies is there's different plans at each company. Some of the stations we bought, like T&H, had a 401k matching program. We continued that. Others had pension plans. Some were rolled into LIN. We didn't want to have 15 different pension plans. The old King World in Buffalo, and so we've tried to consolidate those into something that made sense for everybody.
Okay, another question from Jane in Austin.
Hi, Jane.
Just really wanting to address the LMA issue for those markets that have LMAs and what this transaction will mean to the LMAs.
What this will be is seamless. We hope to have LIN television go forward with very little change. The people that were responsible for developing the LMAs, the people that made the transactions that brought them into being are still here. And we will continue to develop them. It's been an integral part of LIN television. We have 4 LMAs in LIN television, an OTV in Battle Creek when it comes back to the fold. So it's a very important part of the company and one that we will want to see develop, continue to develop.
Okay, that's really all the questions that have come in at this point.
Are there any other questions here? LIN Productions is a part of LIN Television. The question is, what happens to LIN Productions? And my question is, how good's the baseball game going to be, Lee? Okay. LIN Productions is actually just a part of LIN Television, another division that has set new standards, I think, with regard to local sports production. We're very proud of that accomplishment, and obviously want to onward and upward, do even better.
Okay, just had a question from Mark Bouchot in Fort Wayne, really asking you to expound on Sunrise and their relationship. I think Mark's real question is, in that Fort Wayne is in a below 50 market, is Fort Wayne still part of LIN television?
Mark, you're on board here. There's going to be a crossover, and when I say our main focus will be in the top 50, we may be doing transactions. Well, if we could have done the Providence Journal, some of those stations are in the top 10, some in the top 25, some in the top 50, but they had a few that were 80 or 90. So there'll be some crossover because when we do these mergers, not all of them will be in the top 50. And certainly, Fort Wayne is with us. You're going to stay right here with Lynn.
You talked about a buy and build strategy.
Yep.
Do you have a vision of how big you want to
Well, yeah, I do. I would like to, in 5 years, have Lynn, I'm down to 15 seconds, I see, Lynn be at least double the size we are, maybe triple. So I'd like to see us grow and prosper. So I guess I'm coming down to my last 5 seconds, and let me... How much? 15. Okay. Well, let me say one other thing that I think is very important, and that is security. Security. Everybody likes security. We have been through, as I said, I've had 4 different bosses, 4 different boards, and I found that my best security is having you do a good job. And that's your best security, too. That's really the security we have as we go forward. It's a changing environment, and by us all performing as we have in the past, we ensure our future, literally. And you've done a terrific job of that. Any other questions?
Gotcha. We'll get to that right now. Thanks. Bye.
With the association of the Dallas Stars ownership with the new company, any chance we'll see them on XTX?
I don't know. Let me put it this way. These are discussions I've not had. We believe that we've built KXTX to be the #1 local sports television station in Dallas-Fort Worth. Those are discussions that obviously, and I'm sure they have contracts in place, but when those contracts are up, I'm sure we want to have that discussion. We think that we've done as I said, I think probably the best job of local sports production for baseball for the Texas Rangers. If you go across America, and I don't know how many of you watch baseball, but if you watch the cable and watch baseball, you will realize that LIN Productions is the best local sport productions of baseball today. We think we've done a very good job there, and I'm sure we can do that for other sports if that opportunity were given us.
Let me jump in with two questions from Buffalo. One relates to the potential overlap between Buffalo and Rochester, and what the resolution might be there. And number two, from Jim, whether or not this transaction would impact any collective bargaining agreements.
Okay. First of all, the agreement with regard to Buffalo is that if there were to be any divestiture, and certainly we'll ask for waivers, and there will be some waivers that will be required from the FCC. And of course we have to go through Hart-Scott-Rodino, which basically says that this has to pass the Justice Department test. But with regard to any potential not receiving waivers, the LIN stations will stay in place, I'm pleased to report. So hopefully they can get whatever waivers are required, but either way, IBV will be part of LIN Television.
Okay. On the collective bargaining agreements?
This will have no change with regard to those whatsoever.
Okay, Heidi at KXAS in Dallas just had a question about our ability to acquire new investments or procure new news equipment, and what our level of investments might be in the news area.
Let me guess where Heidi works.
Yeah, I suspect Heidi's in the news department. We're kind of on the cutting edge, I think, with regard to equipping our television stations, our news department. This year we made 2 acquisitions with regard to helicopters. Of course, one at KXAS. Before it was kind of a lease arrangement, and now we own it. George, you take care of it. And also at Wish. And we have plans of continuing that. The biggest transition that we're going to face is going from analog to digital. And this will most directly affect not just the engineering department, but the news department also. And we are further along in that development than any television company in the country today. We've invested $15.4 million to make that conversion. And it all starts at the transmitter, because about 50% of the towers in America cannot take the new antenna. Wind loading, weight loading, they simply were not built to take 2 antennas and transmission lines. So in 6 of our markets we have rebuilt, and Dallas-Fort Worth being one of those towers. And we not only rebuilt the towers, but we also have the transmitter buildings out there ready to go for digital. The cameras that we'll be replacing in the studio here
we'll be capable of going to digital transmissions. We also will be, as we make this transition, having to replace switchers. We're going to have to replace, in essence, the entire heart of the engineering department of the television station. Over the next 5 years, we'll be talking of probably $40 million to do that. Probably half of that would be incremental, meaning equipment that would have to be replaced anyway. So television is, as we go to digital, a very capital-intensive business. And we're prepared and planned and budgeted to make that investment. And it's not just in the news department, but that too. We'll be moving to digital there too, as that opportunity presents itself. Automation, because of the LMAs, we have moved into automation more rapidly than most of our cohorts in the industry. And of course, as we do this, we're going to end up in the future replacing tape, and we're going to have servers, and it will be digital, because we're going to live in a digital world. The other industries are doing it. The cable industry will be doing it. All the other competitors of television will be in a digital world, and we have to be there too. I don't know if you have satellites, but one of the things I find at home, I am a high-power USSB DirecTV customer, and I'll tell you, and I also have an outdoor antenna. But I have noticed and I live in Providence, which means I have to pick some of the stations up from Boston, which is a ways off, but it's an outdoor Yagi antenna. And a lot of the stations in the market, when I switch from the satellite back to over the air, don't look as good as what I see on the satellite. Well, that's not a real good thing if you're in the television business. You want the viewers out there to get the best picture from you. Or certainly you don't want the satellite to have a better picture within your television market than your own TV station. So this is what going to digital is all about.
Okay, we're really coming down to the end of our time and have time for maybe one or two more questions. And just so all the stations down the line know, following Gary's sign-off, there will be a 2-minute tape, a 3.5-minute tape, that will be an interview that Gary and Tom Hicks gave last night. You may want to use it just for station use, or you may want to repackage it and use it for newscasts. It's totally up to you. Quickly, Hunter Hughes from Wavy asked a question relative to how taxes would be handled as the ESPP is cashed out. And I think that's really a question
Hi, Hunter.
Peter Maloney might deal with.
Yeah, basically this will be reported as ordinary income. So you'll have to pay taxes on it as if it were ordinary income. Which means you got to pay taxes on it. That's it.
Okay, if there are no other questions, I think we probably should sign off here. And then again, for the stations down the line, hang on and be prepared to pick up this interview.
Keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Well, we did because we think it's going to be a very attractive investment for ourselves and our investors. We've been very active investors in the media industry the last 3 or 4 years. I think we're probably the leading private investor in the world at this point. We've invested quite a bit in radio, television, cable television, and this set of assets, anchored by the station we're on now, is an absolutely world-class set of assets, and the management team, led by Gary, is a world-class group of managers. And our interest is taking this launching this platform and making additional add-on acquisitions in the large market television industry with Gary.
Was it important, being a Dallas-based company, to have a Dallas-based flagship? Was that one of the key elements?
Well, it wasn't the reason we did the deal at all.
Sure.
I mean, we're purely financial investors, but I think it gave us comfort that the flagship asset for this group of stations is the Dallas-Fort Worth market, and we know how strong that market will be for the next 5 to 10 years, which gave us a lot of comfort with that flagship asset.
Now, as I understand it, you guys have been very active, you said, in the broadcast industry, mostly radio. Can we see this as a branching out of your company? I mean, is TV where your main interest will lie now?
Well, not necessarily our main interest. We're committed to investing in great investments. Probably 25% of our portfolio is in media. As I said, we have sizable investments in large market radio through what will be Chancellor Media based here in Dallas. We have a small market radio group that has 240 radio stations. We've had a difficult time finding the right arrangement in television. We found our small market platform last year with Bob Smith, and I think we believe that Gary and his team and this set of assets is a perfect platform for large market acquisitions.
Mr. Chapman, I guess for LIN Television, this is a win-win situation for everybody.
Well, Jay, let me say how happy we are to be partners. We look forward to this relationship. They have a philosophy in radio, and it's called buy and build. Well, this is our vision. This has been LIN Television's vision. And I'm pleased to have part of this transaction, one of the sister stations to come back from Grand Rapids. So we already added. We did it as we come together. So we look forward to this and many years to come.
And as far as LIN TV is involved, not a whole lot, as I understand it, day to day is going to change. I mean, LIN retains its name. We bring back one of the sister stations, so it's...
Well, one of the things that I think is sets LIN apart is a certain culture. We have built this company with a pride, I think, in what we've accomplished. In this market, we expanded early morning news, as you know, first with the LMAs, and now digital. We are making that transition from analog to digital. So that's kind of a leadership. It's a certain pride we take in what we accomplish, and we want to keep that culture.